email that to me. You can upload it onto Blackboard. You can give it to Mariah. We just needed somehow that document. Yes, sir. I saw you raise your hand.
Did you clean it up in your house?
I cleaned a small part of my house, but definitely not enough. No. And like, I about had like so I've been finishing this piece for literally the concert tomorrow night. And last night at 9 p.m. I just about had a panic attack and threw it all in the trash can. Not kidding. Everything that I had written. And so like, it's been a 24 hours, you know what I mean? So anyway, no, I did not. No. Unfortunately, that makes me sad. But that's okay. That's on the bottom. It goes to the bottom of the list, let's be honest. For me. For some of you maybe not. But for me, it goes to the very bottom of the list. You are above the cleanliness of my house. I'm dead serious. So this is what I need you to do right now while I eat this granola bar. I need to hear somebody who had a super awkward moment over the break. I need to hear about it. I need a good laugh. Oh, I don't know. It's funny. Yeah.
This morning I saw Miss Susan and somebody in her family gave birth, and so their Thanksgiving was weird. So I asked if she named a turkey, and she said no, we didn't have a turkey because the baby was on Thanksgiving. And I was like, well, that's kind of like something came out of the oven.
That's really good. That's not even awkward. I love that comment, Stephanie Gray. Hey, did you guys see a couple years ago those people who pranked that I don't know, she's probably a 20-year-old person, but obviously someone who does not quite put things together, and they pranked her and they took like a little Cornish hen and they stuffed it inside the turkey so that when she cuts open the turkey, she's like, it was pregnant! And she starts crying and having this thing. Guys, how do turkeys have babies? They lay an egg. You would never find a dead baby turkey fetus inside the turkey. But she like cries and she has this whole thing because they stuffed a Cornish hen inside the bird. And she cuts it open. She's like, it was pregnant, and she cries. Bless her. I mean, but it's really funny. Yeah, go watch it. It's real good. It's very funny.
So every year, instead of going to Black Friday, my family goes to the Texas Renaissance Festival.
Oh.
And my grandparents came this year, and I found out that my grandpa really likes this really body show, and I had to sit through like an hour of these ladies making really.
I know someone in that show.
Really?
Is the Red Fair on around here, or is it somewhere else?
So the TRF isn't used.
Huh?
There's 3 Renaissance festivals in Texas, but the Texas Renaissance Festival isn't used.
What was the name of that group of girls?
It was Iris Rose.
Okay, that's not what I thought.
There's a few.
There's a few groups, and I have a former student who's in one of those, and yeah, they run a adult show, and then they have like a family-friendly one. But yeah, Renaissance era was a fun time.
Is it like just like group jokes?
It's like they sing songs, and yes, and then they even joke with people in the audience. They'll be like, oh, you know, like just, yeah.
Oh, like cabaret?
But no, it's like they have a little thing, they go through and they tell these jokes, and then they sing songs that are completely inappropriate, but yeah. So you found out your grandpa likes dirty jokes.
Yeah, and he was sitting right next to me
And having a grand time.
I was just like,
No, Grandpa! You're not supposed to understand dirty jokes. You understand that for you to exist.
Those jokes had to be made. Those jokes had to be made. Yeah,
Well,
that's true. That is so true.
I know we don't want to think about these things, but
How did we come? We're not from
all of the old people that ever existed in your past, you know, your family.
oh,
I swear.
But that is funny, Allie, to sit next to your grandpa and him laughing at the jokes. And you're like, no! Yeah, Risha.
So, this Thanksgiving, my fiance had to work, so for like the whole day I was by myself, and so my mom, I posted on Facebook, I was like, well, I'm just gonna spend Thanksgiving
ex from like years ago, his grandmother messaged me on Facebook and was like, "You're more than welcome to come by." And then she called me and she was like, "So are you coming by?" And I was like, "You're an hour and a half away." And I was like, "I don't think he wants to see me."
That's so nice of her.
That is really nice.
That is really sweet.
Oh my gosh.
It's always the ex's grandparents.
Yes, it's like right in my face. It's really big
Yeah,
for
it
a
is.
nap, I think. All right. Well, I'm all feeling a little more relaxed now. Good laugh.
Do you have any?
I'm trying to think. I really don't have any awkward. I didn't have an awkward Thanksgiving. It was actually pretty good. Lots of good food, and I had some little girls who they were making these. They had these leaves that they hung on these trees. They'd write what they were thankful for on the tree, and they made me jewelry. So I replaced my earrings with these, you know, just like ornament holders and paper leaves, and that was really cute. I'm walking around though with like these things.
And you like getting into perfection, you're like, it's fine.
No, my ear holes have been a lot worse than that. I've worn Christmas ornaments before in my ears. Why not? No, I don't have any good awkward stories, except if you consider my own life just awkward as it is.
Do you consider it awkward?
Sometimes. If anyone were ever to come to the, you know, sometimes you get home and you change clothes and you look like a hobo and you don't care, and then some people come to the door and
All the time.
right? Yeah,
I
Sophia.
have Hawaiian buns out of your comics and corn.
All right, we probably ought to get to class, everyone. Everyone wants to tell their stories, I know.
I think they want to know
What?
I think they want to know what the buns meant.
Oh,
I said something to concert choir about.
you're baking the bread, and so you're
Oh,
there,
I
so
don't
buns
have
are
any
there. Oh,
Yeah, we were trying to memorize words for a song, and I made a joke about buns.
Bear making buns.
because the world is bare.
The world is bare because we bake the bread.
Blake and Capricorn.
Yeah. So I
They described
mentioned buns
keto
that are
diet.
naked, and everyone thought it was really funny and awkward, probably. Like you thought your grandma was awkward. Okay, so everyone, two things today. One, just any other maybe mixed meter updates. We'll be taking a look at a piece of music, see if you can do cutoffs and things while you're doing the meters. Remember, it's very simple once you think about it to get just the patterns and the snaps and rolls down, but when you add things like dynamics, cutoffs, cues, the whole thing, it can become very overwhelming. See if you've attempted that. Number two, I wanted to talk to you again about your final exam and the piece there. There's one thing that I forgot to tell you. Maybe some of you figured it out already. There's a very important decision you need to make in your study and conducting of the music for the final exam. Anyone figured out what it is? Yeah, Tabrisha, what is it?
In cut time, so we have to decide whether we're going to conduct it in 2 or in 4.
That is correct. And most people would say, well, it's a cut time, just conduct it in 2. And that is what I would do because that's what Mozart put on the piece of paper. And frankly, I'm going to trust Mozart and honor his wishes. But this piece is very well known. It is done all the time by many, many peoples who go as slow as death and conduct it in 4. You may have noticed if you went on and listened to things, you're going to hear people do this slow. Which if you tend to conduct in 2 is impossible, okay? So obviously they go in 4. Now, here's my rule. You may decide which one to conduct in, okay? You get to decide. Know that each comes with their own challenges and benefits. Each one has things that are good and bad about it, okay? But when you decide, this is one thing, you can't just trust people to divine from your conducting presence. When you step on the podium, if there's a choice, you have to say, I'll be conducting this in 2. Do you understand? Or I'll be conducting this in 4. Crucial piece of information for all involved when you're conducting. You just gotta tell them. Okay? They can't guess that one. Got it? Okay, so here's the second rule. Look at the tempo marking. What is it on there?
Adagio.
It's adagio at the half note. Do you know what adagio is? About 60. That's right. Good. Thank you. So adagio is about 60, but that's 60 at the, not the quarter note, the half note, which means the quarter note is what? 120. If you were to conduct in 4, I do want you to honor Mozart's tempo, etc. Does that make sense? Close. Now, it's adagio, so there is some leeway in that. Does that make sense? It's those of you who are going to want to go a little slower that are probably going to end up doing 4. And those of you who are going to go on the fast side of adagio are going to end up doing 2. Does that make sense? So you need to pick, but I refuse to have you do this. There's no way that that could be considered adagio at the half note, okay? So you have to be in the vicinity of adagio at the half note. If you were to fudge slow, you could probably make it work at 4. Does that make sense? You could make that work at 4. Maybe that's about the slowest you would ever go. Okay, you feel that? Good. If I take it that slow in 2, it is functional, good, but you also could say, I'm gonna go a little faster. And if so, you would handle it in Does that make sense? You're gonna have to decide. If you've taken a look at it, which I'm guessing some of you maybe have, you're gonna notice that whichever one you choose utterly and completely changes every gesture you do. It changes, you know, the breath may happen in the same amount of time, but the gesture would be completely different if you're in 2 versus the gesture you would give in 4. So also change all the way you do all your cues, right? Do you understand? Because you can't breathe on 2. Do you know what I mean? You can't. You have to. It's well, big to small 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because you know what I mean. So if you're in 2, you have to breathe on 1 or 2, not and. Do you understand? Okay. But there are benefits and there are pluses and minuses. What do you think would be an advantage in conducting in 2? What do you think?
You get through it fast.
Is that the point?
It's over.
Huh?
Is that musically important?
Well, no, but because you get through it faster, because the ensemble doesn't have to worry as much about this.
Oh, I guess that's one way of thinking about it. But musically, what would be the advantage of going in 2? Yeah, Grace?
Would it help? Because with 4 you get all of the ictuses, and with 2, if you want to take it more legato, whatever stylistic you're comfortable.
Yes, it absolutely would. All those beats really tend to undo legato no matter how hard you try, right? So you generally get a legato feel. You also get an easier way of making the music move and stretch across those longer phrases. Does that make sense? You feel the bigger phrases that Mozart meant when you're in 2. That's what he meant. Do you know what I mean? Instead of dum, da, da, da. You're really supposed to be about da, da, do, do, do. And you can feel the actual length of the phrase there, whereas before you get lost in all those slow notes. Okay? Right, so kind of the advantage of 2 is going to be legato, it's going to be you're feeling the phrases more, do you know what I mean, more easily. What's going to be a disadvantage of 2? Yeah.
Cutoffs will be harder.
Cutoffs, cues, breaths all become a little bit more complicated issues. Okay? Does that make sense? And you will have less control not dictating half the things you're dictating when you're in 4. Does that make sense? That would be the disadvantage. So then let's flip it over, because it's going to be the exact opposite when we talk about 4. What's going to be the advantage of 4 would be the disadvantage of 2. What's the advantage of 4 then? Easier cutoffs, cues, and all that, right? And then of course the disadvantage of 4 would be the musicality aspect becomes, there's more choppy, it's harder to do legato. Chances are you want this to be legato. Never heard someone do it not legato. And just the fact that it's just so busy bee with the hands. You know what I mean? So you sacrifice the line, but you gain control. So really, it's a 50-50 thing. And I can see different situations where I would choose 2 and situations where I would choose 4. Does that make sense? So either is fine, there is no wrong answer. But whatever you do, you need to be able to do all your gestures in that meter. Do you know what I mean? And you need to know the whys of it. That's why we do this conversation. So if someone were to say, well, why in the heck are you taking that in 4? You could say, well, we're going to stretch the tempo out a little bit. We're doing this at a funeral, you know what I mean, or whatever. A little slower. I'm serious, this is a funeral song. People do it all the time at funerals. And you could say, plus my choir doesn't know it very well, and I need to help them more. So I would do it in 4. Or you could say, well, why are you doing this in 2? It's traditionally very slow. And you'll see on all the YouTube recordings, probably 60 to 70% are the really slow ones. I hate them. The song is not meant to go that slow. It really doesn't hang together. It doesn't have like a piece of music. It just becomes a dirge, right? So anyway, so if someone said, why are you doing it in 4? Why, so if you, in 2, you can say, well, Mozart wrote it in 2. It's all you need to do to defend that one. Plus, I like the beautiful line it creates. Does that make sense? Was there a hand that I missed over here? Okay. Good. So you need to make that decision. And thus, it would adjust all your gestures, okay? Now, I want to make sure that you understand that not all the breaths in this piece are unity breaths, meaning not everyone breathes all at the same time. So you have to decide breaths for everyone, and then attempt to catch the majority of them. Obviously, sometimes you can't do everything, but you definitely need to at least cue, even if you're not breathing, some of the entrances that are happening while other people are singing. Have you found these things? Where's the first major one? Yeah, Sophia.
At measure 13 with
Yeah, who does it?
the
The basses have this completely different entrance, and most people just fly right by because they're at the bottom of that, the music, you can't see them, but they need your help right there. They're doing that all alone. That's scary. So you definitely need to give the boys a glance and a hand to help them go Ebola. Do you see how that happens different than everyone else? You definitely need to do that. That is required. Cue the basses. Good. Then when we get over to the second page, you got a whole section where people are doing different things. What is actually happening there? So how could you describe that little thing that happens?
like imitated.
Yes, it definitely seems imitative. It's even more than that, though. It's even fancier.
There's different words.
Canon, not quite canon. Did you say hocket? Wow. I haven't heard people use that word in a long time. It's not quite a hocket. What it more is, guys, is a sequence. Do you see this is a sequence? You know what a sequence is, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a canon because it isn't exactly back and forth. In fact, you do the same thing over and over on different pitches. Do you see it? Good. And then they do so canonically or imitatively. They echo. Okay? There's 2 duets. Do you see it? There's 2 duets going on. So you have to decide kind of what part of that you're conducting. Do you want to help people take a breath in each of their moments in those things? Or do you want to emphasize the most musical part of the phrase? Does that make sense? You kind of have to decide, because you're going back and forth on this, you have to decide what you're conducting each section. Are you starting then? Are you going bum, 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 dun, 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 and if so, you're back and forth on all the starts of the phrases. Or you could get people in and then switch over and emphasize the little cute moving thing that they do, because that's where you would phrase into it. Does that make sense? Okay. You also have an interesting thing to deal with in the fact that because those duets are happening in that kind of polyphonic manner, each pair is going to max out phrasal in their phrase climaxes at different times. Do you notice that? Okay. In fact, you have to affect in that section a very long crescendo as well. So that's another complication there, is that you've got a long, long crescendo. Which I have to say, when we did our last test, sometimes your dynamic changes were the most ungraceful things you did. Like you were overdoing it, unnecessarily so. Some huge motions for like a crescendo from a piano to a forte or something, where there were like arms out here. I wouldn't say in this song you would ever need to put an arm all the way out. What's the loudest we ever do in this? That's forte. Do you understand? So even if you want a crescendo, don't overdo it because you think they're not going to follow you. All you're doing is making yourself, you're destroying your ability to control things in the minute way that you want to, because you do this big grand gesture for a small crescendo. What do you do for the big ones? Do you know what I mean? Okay, so be careful, monitor yourself. You should never go in this song. There's never a moment for that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? In fact, it's very rare that I ever do something that huge. In fact, usually it's like half eyeballs with a poofy chest. Do you know what I mean? And that's what crescendos tend to be a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? We give them eyeballs. You give, as long as your regular face is what it is, relaxed and engaged. The second you engage your eyeballs and you give them the, can you feel the change in my body energy? That's what communicates crescendo and decrescendo. So this, and then the hands are what give it specificity. It's really your body demeanor that affects that, because it helps. You have to show to your musicians what it feels like to crescendo, especially for singers. For instrumentalists, a little different. You can snap a hand out there and grow, and they'll do it. But for singers, they want to feel they want to understand the visceral feeling of what you're doing. So you have to give them the feeling of what it feels like to crescendo. But what does it feel like to crescendo as a singer? Your body poofs up and engages. That's why that works. When you go, all of a sudden, you feel that body poofing crescendo thing. That's what happens. And then your hands really then give you the specificity. Where does it top out? Where's the most of that crescendo? Do you know what I mean? Or really. You understand? So a lot of it happens body, okay? Same thing with diminuendo, except it's the opposite. You've maxed out on your crescendo, you're high energy, you want a diminuendo, you just start relaxing that whole posture, your face. You get a feeling of peaceful return. Usually that's what most crescendos feel like, except for the scary crescendos. Those are different. But those are handled differently. And those are very much more rare. But I'm talking about places where you would be scared in a song, or creepy, which you wouldn't think there is, but there is. Where you go, diminuendos. Okay? So, with that in mind, do you have any questions about anything specific on the page? Yeah, Tabrisha.
In measure 37, like where the fortes mark, the sopranos come in on beat 3, but the piano reduction, it starts, like it stops and then it starts back on beat 4. Do we cue the piano as well? Or is that needed?
It's holding it down. It holds that second half.
Let me just look at it, make sure I'm. Did you say measure 31?
37.
37. Oh, right. Okay, so it comes down to, in that whole point, that you need to conduct who needs the most help or who's most important. Who does that come down to? What do you think? The sopranos. Yeah. Plus, the strings aren't, it's not a cue for them. They're still playing. So it isn't a new entrance. Do you see that? Are you talking about the left hand, Tabrisha? Or are you talking about the right hand?
I guess.
Because if you look, that's a floating rest for the bottom voice of the right hand, but the top voice is playing for previous. In fact, their rhythm is bum, 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 bum. So they're already playing. They might need encouragement to bring that out because it is an isolated part. But really, you've got bum, bum, in, bum, mod. You've got a lot to worry about there. And definitely, who's going to need it? Sopranos. And then who else right after? Everyone else. You do have to cue both those things, okay? That definitely is a soprano cue. Right there. They're hung out. They're very exposed right there. You got to look at them. You got to encourage them to sing that thing. And then bring everyone else in a couple beats later. Do you see it? Okay. Very good. Yes.
So, would we cut everyone else off and then keep like a hand held out and looking at the sopranos while we like cut off? And then
Do you want the sopranos to breathe? See, there's some yeses and there's some no's.
I mean,
so it's going to depend on what you want.
No.
If you sing it, oh, they're going to want to breathe so much, and they're going to need to have tanked up somewhere in order to do that
Yeah, because
beautifully.
the whole line they don't really have a chance to breathe together.
Nope.
So, but everyone else logistically would cut off on 3, but they're singing a note on 3.
Yes, they are. So what are your options right there in that moment? You cut everyone off on little 2 or and of 1. That's one option. Okay. Another option. Don't breathe. They cut off when the sopranos come in. Another option. Sopranos breathe. No one else does. They cut off on 3 or big beat 2. And sopranos just come in. Do you understand? You've got lots and lots of options. A lot of those, and they would change how you conduct, but lots of those you would have to determine, in rehearsal. You have to take care of it. But you could definitely breathe for the sopranos and then cut everyone off. That's easily done, especially if you're in 4. Okay? But you could also do both. You could have the sopranos breathe and cut them off in 2. You'd just be using a stop gesture to cut the sopranos off and holding with your left hand to the rest of the choir. The complication of that is that the sopranos are over here and everyone else is over here, but your holding hand is your left and your cutting off hand is usually your right. So how do you make that happen? Not that much, but you definitely can point your left hand across your body and your right hand that direction. You definitely can do this, but don't do this. This is awkward. Speaking of awkward stories. That's fun, okay? But you can point your hand this way, okay? Remember who you're looking at. So if you do this, you see my hand like this, okay? So if everyone is holding, they know they're holding. They're not dumb. They've got the music. It's not like they don't know what's happening. You're just there to kind of clarify. You understand? Okay? So you're doing the cadence. You bring them down. Oh no, we're crescendoing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What are we saying? Examine? No.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, examine.
So say I'm in 4. No, 4 is easy to do both. Okay? But if I'm in 2, we go zami, and you hold your hand like this towards them, and you do your sopranos. You look at them, ne, and then while you do that, you lift this hand and you cut them off. Okay? Zami, ne, in. Does that make sense? And you cut them off, boom, right when you bring them in. In more. Does that make sense? And then you look back and forth. So you stick it out to those things. That's it's not too difficult. But you can decide. You could also cut everyone off there. Okay? If you're in 2, though, realize that the breath for alto, tenor, bass would be happening where?
On the hand.
No. We never cue on the end. We always breathe on a beat. Remember, I always breathe on the nictus. So if you're in 2, where's everyone breathing? No, they're coming in on beat 2.
So you mean the soprano?
it's alto, tenor, bass, right
Oh,
there.
that one.
They're coming in on two. So
They're coming in on two, so you have to read them on what? Which is the soprano, second part of the soprano entrance. So you have to realize that you only breathe the sopranos, and then the second they approach that D, you turn your face to everyone else and breathe. Okay? You do so. Here's the complicated thing about conducting sometimes that we don't think about is we feel like we have to prepare and then take people through the thing we just prepared them for. But in reality, once you prepare and set it up, you can leave. That's what you have to do in that situation, especially if you're in 2, because you got to breathe everyone else on beat 1. And that's, but you're going to want to go stick with sopranos, right? Because they have their moment. No, right at the moment of arrival, ictus of 1, snap away. You've already done your work for them. And it's hard to think ahead like that as a conductor, okay? So, but you're in 2, you have to go 1, E, and you're gone. You're not there for the big arrival. You're breathing. Does that make sense? If you're in 4, you can be there for the arrival and cue everyone else. Hence, advantages and disadvantages. Does that make sense? Good. In all honesty, and I'm not gonna kind of allow you to do this because I haven't taught you the appropriate way of doing this. There are probably this piece could easily be done in both 2 and 4, meaning that at moments you would do 2 and then maybe subdivide some measures. It wouldn't necessarily be 4, it would just be 2 and then 2 subdivided if you needed help. Does that make sense? So really what it could come down to as well is that you would subdivide maybe for moments like that if you really needed to. Does that make sense? So you could go 1 and E, done. You could do things like that. Or 1, E, you know what I mean? You could do things if you subdivided. I just haven't taught you how to use that effectively. You just have to know that you only use it when you need it. Otherwise, you just pretty much in 4. You know what I mean? You have to be very choosy about it. And know that anytime you subdivide, it always has a tendency to slow things down. Especially for beginning conductors, because they subdivide too big. And all subdivisions should be teeny tiny. In order that you can do them in tempo. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah.
For our final, will chamber already know this song, or?
Oh, they know it, honey. We do it like every year, and what'll happen is like I'll rehearse with them once before. We'll sing through it. They have it in 10 minutes. So most of them, people who have been in chamber, have done it so many times. Yeah. So, but before you conduct it, I will go through it all with them. We'll get all the bugs out, and then off we go. You with me? Okay, very good. Tybreesha.
Going on that point, I was wondering if, like, I know that when we did Deep River, we were singing it. Since chamber is singing it, are we not singing at all, or are we just sitting on the side?
Nope, just sitting on the side.
Are the people who are in chamber still singing with chamber?
I mean, if they can handle it. Some people love it. They come in and they're like, I want to sing. Do you know what I mean? If you are not in chamber and you want to sing, by all means, join us. Yes, sir.
If we're coming from something that day, are we gonna have the order already, or are we gonna do that at
We can prepare the order. That's fine. We can do that so that we know. But it starts at 1:30, which is chamber singers' final exam time. Is there anyone that has a conflict? I wouldn't think they would because we're right after chamber singers. I think we maybe even share a time. Okay, good. Because if there was, we could maybe fudge one direction, you know what I mean, or the other, so she get you in there to rehearse to do your final exam. But remember that you need to dress professionally, right? We'll be in 317 for that, and you'll be behind the piano, and they're all there out there watching you.
And it's next Wednesday.
I can't believe it, but yes, it's next Wednesday. That makes me want to cry a little bit, but that's right. I have 5 concerts to do before that day, so my life is literally hour by hour at this point. 5 concerts. 2 not even in this state.
Where are you going?
Utah. Sick. Utah that got a big dump of snow is what it is. Yeah. Something. I was talking to my sister who lives there, and she's like, the branches, so what, do you guys live, any of you live near snow? You ever had snow? It's magical in many aspects and horrific in others. But if it's a wet snow, it like, she says all the branches are sagged down. It's like winter wonderland. It's all nice at first, and then it becomes a slushy, gray, grody mess. And that's why you wear parkas and boots and things. You don't go outside very much. Anyway, so that'll be fun. Speaking of, while we're talking about that, 2 of those concerts are with those Millennial Choirs and Orchestras I told you about. That's this Saturday. So you're invited again, although I think we're sold out at this point. But we're going to release tickets. I think we're going to release any VIPs that we did not assign. Or if you really want to go and you can't seem to get a ticket, email me and I might be able to swing something. I mean, I am a conductor, so a lot of times I can go, give me 2 tickets. And they're like, okay. Yeah, they make it happen. Does that make sense? There's 2 shows on Saturdays, a 5 p.m. and an 8 p.m. It's exhausting, but it's nothing. Our Dallas group just does 2 concerts. Our Arizona does 6. 3 nights in a row, 2 concerts. And there's so many performers that they split the youth into casts. So half the youth do 3 of them, and the other half do 3. But the adult chorus does all of them, as does the orchestra. I've done their concerts before, and like it's pretty hardcore. Nobody can whine and complain because everyone in Arizona has it the worst. Yeah.
So you said also that there was going to be a written exam. Is that you?
No, it will. No.
Okay.
No. I'll open it then. I want you to concentrate on your conducting.
Okay.
Do you understand? And then I'll open it, and I'll open it on Wednesday, and it'll close like Friday or Saturday. I'll let you know. Huh? You guys, I try to be considerate. I understand how difficult it is, so I try to be. I do comprehend what it's like to be a student. I was there once. Yes, you appreciate that? Okay, good. I'm not here to be a tyrant. All I really care about is that you're a functional conductor. That's really all I care about. Do you understand? Very good. Okay, so if we're done with questions, I highly recommend that you make your decision by Wednesday and look through it and try to find all the conducting problems so that you can come in on Wednesday and ask me. Now, if it's super, super specific, I may be like, I'm not just going to feed this to you. Do you know what I mean? But you could say, I want to do this. Will that work? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can ask me those questions, but I won't just give you all the answers. The part of the test is you, hopefully at this point, have the ability to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? And even if you ask your friend, again, there's no cheating on a conducting test. As long as when you step on that podium, you're functional, fine. If one of your friends teaches you how to do a thing, great. Fine. I think it's very good to work together with people because it's hard to be self-aware sometimes. Mirrors are complicated because you can't concentrate on you and what you look like in the mirror, and then videoing is kind of after the fact. And sometimes you're not even aware of yourself. You're watching that video and you're like, I look fine, and you're completely dysfunctional. Come on, it happens.
Yeah.
We are all unaware of some things. Good. Okay, so have you completely stopped doing your mixed and multimeter and concentrated on this? Did you do any work on that stuff over the break at all?
No.
You did. Okay. Well, I don't. Again, I'm not here to. What time is it? Okay. But do you feel like you got a smattering of understanding how to make that all happen? Okay. Because obviously, when it comes to multi and mixed meter, your first job is to make sure that all those beats are there in the right spot. Do you know what I mean? And then you just just get done what you can of everything else. Okay? You will need to do on the test, I guarantee there'll be like definitions, like define a multi-metric. What is multi-metric, guys? Please don't get this wrong. A piece is multi-metric is a piece that has more than 1 meter. That's it. It could be 2/4 and 3/4. That's it. It is multi-metric. Got it?
Yeah.
Versus mixed meter, which is
A meter with compound and simple meters.
good. Or maybe a song that has 2 different meters in it. One is compound, one is simple. Does that make sense? So a mixed meter, like meter is like 7/8, 5/8, 8/8. Some of those fun things. Or a piece can be mixed meter as well if it has like 6/8 and 3/4 back and forth. Because see, it's got both compound and simple in it. Does that make sense? Or you'd even call a piece maybe mixed meter if it was all 3/4, but obviously they beamed it and accented it in so that they emphasized, you know what I mean, 6/8. They just didn't bother to write out 6/8. Like for instance, El Vito, which is a piece that I wrote, is has that in it because Spaniards like to mix up that 3 versus 2 thing, that whole thing. But because it changed so much, it was just going to muddle the score if I put measures, you know what I mean, like change the meter all the time. So what I did at the beginning is I gave it 2 time signatures. So when you look at the score at the beginning, it has 6/8 and 3/4 at the beginning. And so then you as a conductor need to choose which ones you want, you know, which ones are which. You just got to choose it. And some measures have both. So you have to decide which one am I going to do. Does that make sense? What's interesting though is I've literally had conductors who do the whole thing in 6/8 because the song starts in 6/8, and they literally won't change for any 3/4. And I've stepped up, and it makes it so hard. The clapping is almost impossible if you don't change till 3, and so is all the stuff. And so I've been with those conductors. I've literally stepped up in the go and been, you're supposed to change your pattern. And some of them are like, oh, like literally when we did the Allstate, when El Vito was at the Allstate, the conductor was having trouble with the clapping. I'm dead serious. This is a Texas Allstate conductor. Called me up and says, please come help me with this piece in the clapping. So I came in at a Texas Allstate rehearsal. I stepped in. I noticed he was only conducting in 1 meter, and obviously he had no thought beforehand to do any clap cues or anything. So I stepped up there, I whipped them together in rehearsal, and I was like, you need to change your pattern. He was like, oh. And I'm like, how do you not, how are you a Texas Allstate conductor? But see, this is what happens with conductors. If you're charismatic and, you know, relatively functional, you can go really far, honestly. It's very true. It's very true. But people are like, oh, but the singers are like, he's great, but can't conduct, you know what I mean? Obviously can't conduct that stuff.
He's so
And
nice.
yeah, so it happens. It happens. So anyway, so I tried, but I have been with conductors that I told them that very same thing. You're supposed to change your pattern. Look at the time signature I wrote at the beginning. This is me as a composer talking to someone, and they refuse to do it and do the whole thing in 6/8. I've seen that happen before, and I've been like, okay. Were you with us in New York when that happened, Mariah? I was like, are you kidding me? But impossible to do clapping without the 3/4, guys. And that's all. Gotta snap it, and without the clap. Yeah, it's like.
Like, I didn't even watch a video.
No, it's fine. I know there are videos of me conducting out there. Clearly, you can see them all the meters, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Some people do want to do it; they just do it their own way. Do you understand? They don't care what anyone else did. They're conductors like that. Absolutely, and that's fine. That's part of the thing. You just gotta let it go. In fact, Matt Wilberg. Do you know who Matt Wilberg is? Yeah, very famous conductor and composer. And I took choral arranging from him, and he said the worst thing about composing music is having other people perform it.
I understand that.
Because they can do whatever they want to it. I mean, sometimes your pieces just get what to you feels like completely slaughtered. But you have to sit back and go, you know what? They chose my piece of music to sing, and I'm going to be grateful for that, no matter if it's what you intended or not. You know what I mean? You just gotta be grateful.
I mean, if they bought it.
Yeah, you know, they did. But I've been in performances too where people have stood and said, I'm going to now apologize to the composer for what we're going to do to this piece now. You know, when they do all these extra things and put a hoe down
Wow.
in it, you know, whatever. Yeah, I'd like to apologize to Mozart for what's about to happen.
Or conducting it.
I was at an ACDA conference, which is American Choral Directors Association, where someone was doing a Mac Wilbur song. It was in one of his hoedowns. I think it was Violet Cabbage, I think. But he has a couple hoedown pieces, and he said, they literally said, I want to apologize to Mac Wilbur, right, you know, for what's about to happen. And then everyone pulled out like hats and scarves, and they were do-si-doing and doing the whole, you know, they were just hoedowing. And I'm like, if you feel the need to apologize, whatever. You know what? Obviously, yeah, you know, it's just the way. It's just the way they want to do things. It's just their interpretation. Okay. So it's fine. Whatever. It's fine. I've done things to people's music that I've been like, well, I don't know if they wanted that or not, but I do, so we're doing it. It's your prerogative as a conductor. You got it? Good. Tibretia, yes.
This is kind of random, but with turning, did you mark like the option of turning, like how to do the turning that we did? Like
Well, the score is still being edited, actually. That's one of the things on my list of things to do, but I will indicate that they're supposed to be turning, and I will probably suggest ways, but depending on how people are standing or, you know, what they're doing, they can do anything they want. So at that point, with those things, I'll tell them what it did, and then they can do it any way they want. You know what I mean? We tried different things. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
like we didn't spend an 8 count. No.
Count back.
Okay, good. So, guys, are we good? Because I'm going to end class early today.
Don't get too excited.
I will see you on Wednesday with your questions about the final exam. You got it?